We're about to dive into a story of bank fraud so huge it's honestly hard to believe. But what makes this story truly shocking isn't just the money, it's the punishment, the death penalty.
Yeah, you heard that right. When you think of white-collar crime, what comes to mind? Probably big fines, maybe some prison time if they're unlucky. But the death penalty? That's almost unheard of. And that's the incredible story of True Milan, who, without committing murder or treason, received the ultimate sentence for a financial crime. Let's just put this into perspective for a second. Think back to the 2008 financial crisis. The banks that pretty much caused the whole meltdown, they got bailed out. And most of the executives responsible for it all never spent a day in jail. In Vietnam, though, True Milan's case ended with a verdict that absolutely stunned the world. To really get your head around the sheer scale of this fraud, consider this number. The total amount stolen was equal to 3% of Vietnam's entire GDP in 2022. That's not just a big number. It's a staggering figure that casts a massive shadow over one of the most promising economies in Asia.
Subscribe to the Hub of Crime Analysis.
So who was this woman at the center of it all? Well, her story wasn't one of inherited wealth or privilege. It actually began in the crowded, bustling markets of Saigon. True Milan started out helping her mother sell cosmetics at a stall in the famous Bed Thin market. But she had a sharp mind for business, and as Vietnam's economy began to open up in the 1990s, she made a game-changing move into real estate, founding the Van Thyn Phuoc Group. Her rise from there was just meteoric. She built this vast empire of hotels, high-rises, and restaurants. But behind this amazing success story, a massive criminal enterprise was quietly taking shape. So let's break down exactly how she managed to pull off one of the biggest bank frauds in history. You know, the scheme itself was shockingly simple, but just incredibly audacious. First, she used proxies, other people acting on her behalf, to secretly buy up control of Saigon Commercial Bank, or SCB. Next, she set up a web of thousands of shell companies. Then, she put her own people in all the key positions at the bank, and their only job was to rubber stamp enormous, illegal loans to her shell companies. It was this perfect self-contained system, all designed for one purpose, to bleed the bank completely dry. And the result was absolutely staggering. An incredible 93% of all loans from SCB went directly to Lon's network of shell companies. Just think about that. For every dollar a regular customer deposited, 93 cents was basically funneled into her own personal piggy bank. Now, to pull this off, she had to completely shatter a fundamental rule. In Vietnam, the law says an individual can't own more than 5% of a bank. Trung My Lan secretly controlled over 90% of SCB, using her huge network of proxies and shell companies. This is the question that just blows your mind, right? How does $44 billion just vanish over a decade without anyone sounding the alarm? The answer, as you might have guessed, is corruption. And we're talking about corruption on an unbelievable, almost unimaginable scale. People were whispering about her illegal activities for sure, but she bought their silence with massive bribes. For example, the chief inspector of Vietnam's state bank, the very person meant to prevent this stuff, was given $5 million. That's the largest bribe ever recorded in the country. To give you some context, a top government official in Vietnam might earn about $1,000 a month. This single bribe was more than a lifetime of work. The logistics of this fraud sound like something straight out of a movie. For 3 years, Lon had her driver withdraw the equivalent of $4 billion in cash from the bank. And where did he take it? He stored it in her basement. We're talking about so much cash that it would have weighed 2 tons. So if she was so powerful, so untouchable, what changed? Well, her luck was about to run out. A massive political shift was happening in Vietnam, an anti-corruption campaign with a very fiery name. It was called the Blazing Furnace Campaign. Kicked off by the Communist Party chief in 2013, it first went after corruption in the public sector. But as the US-China trade war heated up, the campaign's focus pivoted to the private sector, and True My Lan became its #1 target. In October 2022, her whole empire came crashing down.
And this wasn't just about justice, it was about economics. Vietnam is working hard to present itself as a clean, safe place for huge international companies like Apple and Samsung to invest their money. So cracking down on massive, high-profile corruption like this was a key part of that strategy. Her arrest set off an immediate and catastrophic chain reaction, and the trial itself became this huge national spectacle, raising some serious questions about whether this was truly about justice or something else entirely. The damage was just immense. Police identified 42,000 victims, from big bondholders to just regular people who lost their entire life savings. The government seized over 1,000 of her properties, leaving a trail of empty high-rises across the country. And to stop a complete collapse of the banking system, Vietnam's central bank had to inject a staggering $24 billion into SCB. That's more than half the amount she stole. This quote from the court pretty much gives you the official reason for the death sentence. It wasn't just about the financial loss. The court argued that her actions had basically destroyed the public's faith in the government itself.
But, of course, analysts see a few different possibilities here. Was this sentence designed to make a terrifying example of her, to show the world that Vietnam is serious about corruption? Was it a political move to restore faith in the Communist Party? Or, as some have speculated, could it be a tactic to pressure her into revealing where the rest of the missing billions are hidden?
And she absolutely did not act alone. A total of 85 other people were charged alongside her. This included her husband, who got a 9-year sentence, and her niece, who got 17 years. The sheer number of people involved just shows you the true depth of this conspiracy.
This whole case leaves us with a profound and really difficult question. When fraud is committed on a national scale, destroying tens of thousands of lives and threatening an entire economy, what does a fair consequence even look like? Is the ultimate punishment justified? Or is it a step too far? That's something to really think about.
Subscribe to the Hub of Crime Analysis.